All right, guys, today I'm going to show y'all a little project of my son-in-law's house. They're taking a nice place and kind of updating it. They're going to take this paneling and make it look more like sheetrock and just kind of give it a little update. You know, we're going to change outlets and such. But I wanted to show you how to do that. One of the easiest things to do is some people just paint over the sheetrock, and that looks nice. Another is to block these lines, you know, basically get rid of them. And that way they actually look like sheetrock. So one way to do that, like I said, is to literally just paint over it. Here's an example. They wanted to keep this room with that rustic country look, and they're just painting right over it. So this is paneling as well. And it does give it a nice appearance. But what we're gonna do now on some of the other walls is actually remove that by covering over it with some spackle. It's basically no different than any of the mud that you use for sheetrock. You will have to do 2 passes, and the first pass works out pretty good, but it tends to kind of shrink, and if you feel over it, it'll leave a bit of a bevel. So you want to do at least 2 passes. 2 we found in our case worked really well. And then just kind of lightly sand it, touch it up, and make it smooth. Another option is once you cover these lines, is to come back with mud that you can, again, thin out even more to maybe a little bit kind of like pudding. You can roll it on, and they have different rollers. You could do a paint roll, and that gives you a certain texture, or they have rollers that actually are meant to give you different textures, like tree bark or vine. You can kind of research that, like I said, at your local Home Depot or Lowe's, or any of the hardware stores. But essentially, you can also give it texture, which also covers up any imperfections within the wall. Sometimes when you go this route and you go smooth, you will see some irregularities in the wall, some little humps or bumps that, you know, no house is ever perfect. But essentially, once you do this, if the wall's already painted, you can pretty much go to primer and paint. If it is not painted, it still has the paneling look. Once you fill these in, you will want to scuff them up with a light sandpaper. Just lightly give it a little bit of, take the sheen off so that the paint will adhere to this. Then you primer, then you paint. Whereas on this, we don't have to scuff up as much because it already has received paint. And again, there's so many different options, like I said, from going smooth to simply just painting or to going with texture. And I'll show you real quick. The outcome is a wall that looks like this, that basically is smooth, looks like sheetrock. We went ahead and covered one wall with a wall with wood, and that seems to also work pretty well. Of course, there's, you know, different options. You can do them together, and just works really well. As far as the wood, you can also get that at your local hardware store, and you can either go all one color, where you go all light, all gray, or all brown, or you can do this little hodgepodge, which also looks, I think, looks very well, looks very good. You can kind of decide that depending on what colors you have going on. For example, in this case, we have the fireplace is white with that hardy board, so we figured we'd do a little hodgepodge to kind of tie it all in, and we tied it in with the kitchen. Obviously, we're still working on everything. Another thing that we did is we painted all the trim white to update it from the dark and 70s look. Up here, you can see the trim is a darker color. So basically, that's what we're gonna be doing. We also added on the entryway, we're gonna add some of that same wood that we used here on the walls. We're gonna use it as a beam and just kind of post this up like so. I am gonna put a 45 angle here to give the appearance that we have a wood beam holding up yet the top beam, and just gives it, again, different looks that you can do with those kind of wall accents. In some cases, you can use flooring to put on the walls, but that's a whole other video that we can do on that. The main thing I wanted to touch up on is how you can change paneling into a sheetrock. Let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about with the spackling that we used, the experience that we had on how well it worked. Especially on walls where they may be already white and it's hard to see. We used this Drydex spackling. It's pink when it goes on and turns white. So this is the stuff that I'm talking about. You see how it looks almost like cotton candy or gum? I'll show you real quick how it goes on the walls. All right, guys, so there's really no prep initially when you're going to cover up these lines. I'm going to take that pink stuff, the spackling that I was just talking about, and you want to do it light. Basically, the more mess you make now, the more you're going to have to sand or wipe down. Essentially, you put it all in the crack, give it one good swipe like that, and let it dry. Here, it's obvious where we're blocking or putting on the stuff, but once you've done it, it turns white, and that also lets you know that it's dry. The problem with the regular white stuff is it works fine, but essentially when you're doing the second coat, it's hard to know where you are in reference to the whole room, or if the wall's already painted and let's say they're painted a light color, it can be quite hard to keep up. So we really like this pink stuff. You can also thin this stuff as well and use it as you need. So what I've done is I've got a little tray, a little spatula here that you can, again, get at any local hardware store. Put it all on those lines. Just kind of push it all on in there and then give it one quick rub and wipe it right on off. And you want to, again, try to keep it as clean as you can. The cleaner you do, the better later on you have less to deal with. Like I said, any extra, we're going to also sand down the sheen, and then you can actually primer it and paint it. I would, from experience as well, on seeing some of the other walls, it's not a bad idea to texture the wall. It covers up a lot of imperfections, but we have found that it actually looks pretty good. And once you hang pictures and you got furniture all around, I don't think much of these imperfections, will be visible. And in many houses, that is the thing, is if you start looking around, no house is perfect. But anyway, hopefully this is helpful. How to change paneling and update it and make it more modern. And in some cases, if people don't like paneling, how to make it to where you like the paneling, because it no longer looks like paneling. Again, we've painted the trim. You can leave the trim any color that you want, but we find that white and the painted walls, it just brings it up to this century. Yeah, guys, hopefully this was helpful. Just like and subscribe. Any comments or questions, let me know and I'll try to answer them. And hope y'all have a good day and enjoy your all's projects.